This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Hey, what's up and welcome to Hot Takes. Hey, what's up and welcome to QnA, the show where I take your questions and answer them here in video format. A ton of questions to get into, so let's just jump into it, man. My guy Small says here, have you started your pre-draft process yet? Your talent evaluation videos are always some of my favorite. They give me something to look for in the later rounds of the draft. I have no reasonable way of having an opinion of my own on the players. Well, I appreciate you. And I appreciate that you appreciate this content. My pre-draft process is already rolling. As I'm recording this video right now, and probably by the time, it's going to release on Saturday. So, but this week, I will be in Mobile, Alabama for the Senior Bowl to get up close and personal with these prospects and some of these scouts. And hopefully I walk away with some really good information on what guys are feeling or what the vibe is down there at Mobile. So I'm really looking forward to doing that, just being able to get close, maybe even interact with some of these guys, and hopefully get some dope things for the channel while I'm down there as well. So I'm really looking forward to the trip to Mobile that I'm going to be making this week. But yeah, man, my pre-draft process has started and I've decided to really go in on pre-draft this year. I understand the Browns haven't had a first round pick, so some of y'all might not care as much about the draft, but I really think that stuff like the Senior Bowl is super important. And you always have like 5 or 6 future Browns at the Senior Bowl. You just always do. So it's one of the best events to go to, I think, if you're a Browns fan and if you're somebody who's really interested in getting the scoop on what the Browns are trying to do. So yeah, man, my pre-draft process is starting and I'm looking on leveling it up and making it even better because, you know, I always strive to improve the quality of content on this channel. My guy says, got lumps, says already missed my brownies. Yeah, man, I already miss football. Like 1 football game or 2 football games a week, it really does. It's not enough for me. Like I'm really itching for like spring football to come back. Like, I can't wait. Watch the Birmingham Stallions play like the DC Defenders. I don't know if I got a sickness, but I'm legitimately like, I can't wait for more football, man. Like March 30th can't come here fast enough. And man, what am I going to do between the Super Bowl ending and that whole 2 months? They going to make me, man, like 7 weeks without football. Oh my goodness, man. They tripping. But you know what? Then they finish it out and then we get training camp right after that. It's going to be all good. We're going to be all fine. But yeah, man, I'm already missing football too, dog. Basher says, are we going to add a left tackle through the draft or free agency, or are we just going to stick with Jedrick Wills? I think you probably stick with Jedrick Wills unless you end up in a DeJuan Jones situation. Like unless somebody insanely talented falls to you in the 3rd or 4th round and you get to draft them at left tackle, I really think you're probably sticking with Jed Wills because Jed Wills was a 10th overall pick, and he was a 10th overall pick for a reason, and he plays at a starting level. I think it would be really crazy to expect anybody to come in and play at that high of a level at like the 4th round. Like, again, you could get a DeJuan Jones type situation happen, but outside of that, I doubt it. I think it's probably going to be Jed Wills. Thank you for the question. My guy Eric says, Quincy, as a newer avid fan trying to get deeper into the why of certain football moves, what exactly are the criteria that make someone excited for different hires, or rather what makes it a great hire? And you've done your traits video and those are great, but how do you separate those traits from hype and sort of nebulous reports, i.e. Ken Dorsey was good because of Allen, or he was measurably good in other areas, and what makes these newer and untested people so good. We had proof in the pudding was Jorts and his history, for an example. Appreciate the video. Keep doing great. Look forward to seeing you on Fox or ESPN in the future. Appreciate that, Eric. So when it comes to traits, right, you just want to find traits that work. You want to identify with the Browns, what are they trying to do? You want to come up with a good hypothesis on what you think the Browns are trying to do based off evidence, based off of sound analysis of what they have on a roster. I think it is pretty obvious that they're trying to stretch the field vertically and attack vertically and attack more out of shotgun and attack downfield. And if that is the case, then you want to find offensive coordinators who have experience in doing so, or people who have some experience doing similar things. For example, even with Jim Schwartz, what made me excited about Jim Schwartz was not just that he had a great resume. There were plenty of defensive coordinator candidates out there last year that had a great resume. But what made me prefer him over a Brian Flores wasn't necessarily what he had accomplished before, but it was how he accomplished it, right? We knew that Jim Schwartz loved to build his defenses from the defensive line on up. And if that's the case, I think that's a perfect fit for the Browns. Offensively this year, I think somebody who wants to play the game from the shotgun and on out would probably make a little bit more sense with the Cleveland Browns. Now, again, it's a whole different ordeal. You can hire somebody to be the defensive coordinator and pretty much trust that Kevin's going to be hands off on that. This one's a little bit more difficult, right? Because Kevin is in charge of the offense, or might still be in charge of the offense. If the order of these coaching hires says anything, it sounds like Kevin's still in charge of the offense. And if that's the case, you want to find somebody who could collaborate well with him, which is going to leave a lot of gray areas. So with this, I don't know if there's a single hire that they can make in this cycle that would make me go, this is a knockdown, slam dunk, home run hire like they did with Jim Schwartz. There are hires that I would feel better about, and there are hires that I wouldn't feel great about. But ultimately, there's enough gray area with this situation to where I would have to wait until we start to see some results in some actual games to have a definitive opinion, because it's kind of up in the air right now. Your point with Ken Dorsey being good because of Josh Allen, like that's always going to be a factor with somebody good because they had a good quarterback. That's been the thing that's been holding Eric Bieniemy back when it comes to getting head coaching jobs, is that people think he was only good because he had Pat. But, you know, at some point you got to trust that people know what they're doing and trust that they can work well with others. And I think that's going to be what this is all about. Jason says, you talked about bringing in a big body veteran wide receiver. I'm curious what you think of Cedric Tillman. Seemed like when he ran the right route, he was difficult to tackle with the ball in his hands. I think the team in long term are served better to develop cheap talent than to try to get the free agents. I don't think Tillman or a potential draft pick prospect could grow into that role. Yeah, but you can't ignore that if with Cedric Tillman. And that's a big if. Him not being in the right spot and running the right route, that needs to be fixed yesterday. The reason I say this, and look, I'm going to talk about this more in the Browns whose legacies are on the line videos dropping later this week. But basically, long story short, if Cedric Tillman doesn't figure out how to be in the right spot, he might not play a lot, because he's in a situation where he's going to have a veteran quarterback, and veteran quarterbacks can't stand that. And when the Browns have had veteran quarterbacks in there, right, Deshaun Watson, Joe Flacco, both of those dudes were yelling at Cedric Tillman at times because he just wasn't in the right spot. And those guys won't deal with that for very long. So it's hard to rely on Cedric Tillman because, man, if he doesn't get that fixed like soon, like by OTAs, it could be a wrap for his effectiveness for this year, because they'll just not trust him. And that's just the sad truth. When you're young and you're not prepared, it's real easy to be like, all right, man, maybe the next team would trust you, but we not trusting you no more. And that's how guys fall through the cracks all the time, man. Outroute says, yo, Q, will you be covering the UFL in the spring? I'm kind of excited to see what it'd be like. It's fun after the last time. Yeah, I'm probably not going to be covering the UFL, but I promise you I'll be watching it. I'll be tweeting about it. I'll be watching it. So follow me on Twitter if you want to hear some of my takes on there. Hopefully enough of y'all watch it to where it could be like a little interesting community. Maybe I can get a Discord started on it. I love talking about spring football. It's a bit of a small community right now, but yeah, man, I don't think it's a good idea for me to be out here talking about the UFL on the channel, but definitely I'll be doing it on Twitter because I will be watching, because I am excited about the merger between the XFL and the USFL. And I do think it's going to be really good football and really good television, especially for the spring. And honestly, I think you learn a lot like about football and how that game, like how the operations actually work when you watch something like that, because you're really getting like to see it all, how these referees make these calls, how these coaches get the play calls, and how these players react to play calls, what happens on timeouts. Like, I think if you're a football junkie and you love watching and talking about football, watching something like the UFL is almost required reading, because it really does make you understand what is actually happening on the sidelines in the NFL, because what's going on in the UFL when it comes to structure and everything, it's pretty similar to what goes on in the NFL. Rexler says, do you think the Browns could get a new linebacker to replace Anthony Walker because he was a staple of the defense last year? I think this is JOK's year. I think they're going to let JOK take charge of this linebacker room. So no, I don't think they do anything to replace Anthony Walker. My guy Hade says, yo, Q, great knowledge, always putting out videos, great breakdowns. Here's my question, kind of a 2-in-1. Do you think the Browns will extend Wills for a 1-year prove-it deal? I doubt it, because he's already on his 5th-year option. And will they try to move on with Conklin via trade? A trade won't bring in much, but we probably have to eat some. Yeah, I would say this. If I'm the Browns and you're trying to trade Jack Conklin, this is a situation in reverse that you got Amari Cooper. The money that you can free up is a bit more valuable to you than Jack Conklin's draft compensation. So if you can give Jack Conklin up for a 5th, but that means the team's willing to eat the entire salary, I would do it. Jack Conklin's worth more than a 5th. He's a better player than a 5th, but that $20 million for him to sit the bench, it's just not worth it. And that $20 million could go towards an Amari Cooper extension. It can go towards a Nick Chubb extension. It can go towards a Zadarius Smith extension. It can go towards a new player, right? Like, that $20 million could be better used elsewhere. And if you can free it up via a trade, I think that would be smart to do. Even if it means that you take what is considered less than what Jack Conklin is worth value-wise, to make sure you just get all of that money off, because Jack Conklin is not going to provide you much value if DeJuan Jones starts all year or he gets injured. So I think it'd be worth it to get that, and if you get some draft compensation on top of that, that'd be dope too. But that's going to be it for the questions. No, it's not. Actually, got one more in here. In retrospect, do you believe the Browns should have moved off of Van Pelt and company last year? I remember Jake Burns was pushing for it for the same reasons they chose to do it this year, that being maximizing Watson. It seems like they should have, but since they failed to accomplish that, the last 2 things, Watson's injury probably hampered that part. On a bit of a tangent, it's amusing that according to Grossi in the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, Stump was partially fired because of a leak and proceeds to immediately go on a tell-all media tour. I don't want to speak on rumors when it comes to that whole Stump thing, but yeah, it's a very interesting situation there. What I will say is that Kevin usually gives people an opportunity to prove him wrong before he fires them or gets rid of them. So anybody that the Browns move off of, it probably needed to happen for one reason or the other. So I think that Stump Mitchell's firing release wasn't a accident, or TC's release wasn't an accident. There was probably a really good reason for that, because we have seen that Kevin not really one to fire people without cause. And the same thing goes with Alex Van Pelt. If this was Kevin and Andrew Berry behind it, then It wouldn't make sense for them to fire anybody for no reason. There probably was a reason that they wanted to move on or adjust the role, and those reasons were made. And look, the one thing about Kevin that you either love or hate, because sometimes it works out, right? You get a David Njoku, you get a Grant Delpit, where his stubbornness kind of works out for you. And every once in a while, you hang on to a Joe Woods too long. Kev's going to give his guys time to figure it out. He trusts his guys, right? He's going to give his guys time to figure it out. And when it becomes obvious that they can't figure it out, even with time, he makes the move. Sometimes that could be too late. Sometimes it could be just on time. But that's the thing with Kev. And, you know, for a franchise that's been kind of operating this kind of hot potato way with coaches, I do think that's a nice change of pace. But I can see how that could get old after a while for a lot of people. But that's it. That's the actual end of the Q&A. Thank you guys for asking these questions. You guys have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.